In this episode I want to use a fisheye shot, which is 180 degrees in each direction and is a full frame shot with an 8mm. And what I want to do here is similar to the wrap version, shrink wrap projection, but this time of course a little bit different because I use only a fisheye, and the fisheye gives me here the option to use again a one shot and try to get everything. The idea is of course that we normally go on a tip of a mountain or on a skyscraper, for example, and shoot the sky. Well, we don't have so many clouds here in LA, so I had to wait too long, and I thought this is maybe an image that works very well because it shows pretty much the limitations of it. Because when we go here to the tip of these skyscrapers, we will see they get really a little bit, yeah, you will see. Okay, so let's get started in Cinema 4D. As usual, I need a material here to get my image into the scene. That's the way it works the best, of course. And I have to go here to my folder and to this image here. IMG Downtown LA, DTLA, and I say, okay, please open this, and yes, no, we have it already in a folder. So this is relatively large and it should be normally squared. It's not really, it's some pixels apart from being a good square. I don't care here at the moment. And so what we need here is a sphere. And this sphere should be then, here in the Attributes Manager and Objects, just an hemisphere. And the hemisphere has one problem, that it is not a perfect rendering, that we get not a mathematical description of it. So what I like to do here is, for example, go to 72 or something like that. Let's start here for the tutorial with 48, and that looks fairly smooth. Higher is of course better, but for the time being here, that's okay. So when I drag this here on top, it looks horrible and not usable whatsoever. Even if I render this, so that's not just a matter of rendering or editor view. What I want to do here is of course to get something that works with me from the start. And so I go here to my texture option and I flip this here to flat. And this is of course now in the same way unusable as before. So I have to go here and rotate the whole thing. And when I start, I go to the Shift key and click here to have my snapping in, and 90 is here a good idea. And that looks already much more usable here. And I think we get already a nice dome. For a sky with clouds where we don't have any problems with perspective distortion, I would go with this already. Except here for this area, that's not really nice. So normally I would go here and expand this a little bit. As we are here in texture mode, we can go here to the middle and then drag this a little bit out. And maybe here a little bit, and here starts the imperfection of course, but I don't want to have these black seams here, and I have to move it a little bit to the side. It was not centered and it's very sensitive here. Okay, so that's the first problem, but the main idea here is to have an hemisphere over a scene, and I would photograph if possible so that we have the horizon line a little bit higher, because this area here is not really usable. And that brought me to the idea to work again with my pose morph. And so first of all I make it editable, then I go here to my texture tag and say, please, I want to have all these polygons here, and I select them, which are now flat. I want to have them in my UV again. So now we don't have flat here again, we have a flat projection but stored in the UV space. which brings of course again here the option to go to the pose morph and store this state here in the base pose. And then we can do something here with the other pose.0, and for that I go here to body paint UV. Wait a second, and here we are. And then we can go here to show UV mesh, and I have to click here, and I hope I get a little bit more to see than just nothing. Okay, this works here, and the texture is only available when I click here on that red X to make that visible as well. And I can see here my texture works nicely. Perfect. But that is more distracting now. What I want to have here is of course that I have all my UV data here at the moment. And so I select all of these guys and I go here to relax. And this gives me here only tiny little changes, but I don't care so much because that was all what I needed here. So I go back to startup. And this time I want to stay here in my model tool. And I go here to my pose morph, go to animation, and now I have a slider here. And I can move this stuff here around in the way I want. And that's the beauty of the whole idea. I hope it's the beauty. It's, of course, I'm bragging here. Sorry about that. So we can change this here now, even in negative space or in positive space, in any direction. So we can fight against this distortion here a little bit. It will be not perfect because these guys go really high and there is of course a limit. So, and then I want to go a step even further, which means finally that I want to have now a panorama from this, just a cylindrical panorama, where I can maybe make some adjustments, because to work on a fisheye is not that simple. Of course I could use body paint here in a simple way, but that's maybe not the theme. What I want to discuss is of course that we go now here into the render settings, in effect, and into the cylindrical lens. I guess you never have used it. Sorry for that assumption. So what do we need here? We want to have 360 degree, of course, one time around. And the vertical size here, I guess we have a sphere of 100. And I don't want to have here that lower area because that's really, really crappy. And so I say maybe 90 is fine. That means we need a camera now, and the camera goes exactly in the middle point. That is why I use here the PSR to 0, which you can find as well here in commands, reset PSR. And I like to have it here. That's my private little extra here. And then we have to switch on the camera, and you see, we see here now exactly what I don't want to see. So normally with 100, if I had 100, we had 50 here, but I have 90 from the top of the hemisphere. So we have to go here 55. And that is, of course, 45 down from the top. I hope that makes sense. And then I have only to click here, and I have done this before because I want to see if it works. And then I get here exactly this as result. And you can see here we have that problem, which I said you will see. But this one looks not so bad. It's a little bit more far away. And if you have a sky, that works beautifully now. But you know exactly this top area here is always very, very distorted. And the closer something comes to it, the more it really gets squeezed and squashed. And yeah. Really, it's brutal. But I think maybe that's an idea that you can use in a project later on. And of course, you see here is a little curvy one. I hadn't had the camera really straight. And that's, of course, always something that should be considered, to have the camera vertically in this case. And to render from this looks also very nice. And we can switch off the cylindrical lens, and then we get the camera view here. And that looks much nicer and even mirror-sided. So that can be fixed here with a dash here, and I render this again. And what you see now is the view from the camera a little bit over the middle point where I was. So I put this a little bit down here again, maybe 25. But what I want to do is to move the camera now up to show you exactly what we got. Remember, we used a flat projection, which is maybe not 100% perfect, but it's my idea. When a fisheye projects something to a sensor, then it's flat, and from there I thought I go. So, and then we can move here the camera nicely around, and we can take a look here to the city, and everything is fine. And that this works now here as an illumination sky, that's of course clear. It's maybe not really a panorama because it is a hemisphere and so on. I hope you like anyway to know this little trick or this little shortcut to get a nice illuminated scene in it, because it works with HDRI as well. And there's nothing simpler than to shoot just one direction HDRIs within Fisheye. Okay, I hope that was fun, or you get motivated to go a little bit deeper into that whole area and to set maybe up your panorama in the way you want, and you can adjust this here wonderfully. And what you see here at the moment is of course a projection on a hemisphere from a fisheye, which means it's pretty much like camera mapping, because that works in a similar way, only that we don't use the geometry of the buildings, we just use the projection of the lens. And again, this is all just one little hemisphere and a fisheye. And I think it's fantastic. At least I like it. And thanks for letting me brag here a little bit about my ideas. Thanks for listening as well, and enjoy.